Hey Chem Squad! In today's class we'll be looking at naming acids, bases, and salts. We'll start today's class by naming acids first, and then we'll look at bases and salts later. So whenever you're naming acids, okay, there's basically three types of acid naming rules, and I'm going to use these three substances as examples. So what you will actually need is your periodic table package. On the back side, it should have all of your complex ion names. Okay, so if you have that out, that will be helpful. So let's look at what these three substances have in common. They all begin with hydrogens. Okay. Usually when the hydrogen is at the beginning, it designates this substance as an acid. It doesn't always have to be H2. Sometimes it could be a single H. Sometimes there are three H's. Okay, but generally speaking, most of the time when hydrogen is at the beginning of a substance, we typically have acids. Okay. The other thing that we want to look at are the anions. So this I'll highlight in blue here. The anions, of course, are all negative charged. So here you have a sulfur element. Okay, we actually say that this is a simple ion. Okay, because this sulfur here tends to have a 2 negative charge. Okay, this one, if you look at the back of your periodic table, there's a list of complex ions. So on your complex ion list, look for SO3. SO3 2 negative is actually called sulfite. Sulfite is a complex ion. Okay, and then finally, this one here should be the most recognizable to you because we've used it in grade 11 quite a bit. The anion is called sulfate. Okay, and of course it is also a complex ion. And its charge is SO4 2 negative. Now, depending on what anion is present, it's going to dictate how we name these acids. So we'll start at the beginning. If you look at H2S, because it is a simple anion, it always begins with the word hydro. Okay. Now, in this case, because it's a sulfur atom, it'll be called hydrosulfuric. Okay, and because it's an acid, we use the name acid at the end. So we need to put in hydro, the root name of the element, in this case sulfur, so sulfur becomes sulfuric, and then finally adding the word acid. So H2S is hydrosulfuric acid. For the next one, because the next two are both complex ions, okay, they follow similar naming patterns, but to distinguish between the SO3 and the SO4, okay, we look at the endings of the complex ion. So this one here ends in ite. Okay, so it has an ITE ending for the complex ion. And this one ends in ate. So all acids that contain a complex ion that ends in ite, okay, we use the root name of the anion. So in this case, again, it's that sulfur root name. But if it ends in "ite," the ending of the acid name is OUS acid. So this will be sulfurous acid. Okay. For H2SO4, again, you have sulfur as a root name, but it's going to be sulfuric acid. So it ends with an ic acid. Okay. So ITE gives you an OUS ending. ATE gives you an ic acid ending. Okay. And if it's simple, you have to use hydro, and it ends in ic acid. So let's give you a couple of examples here. Using similar naming rules, okay, try to figure out the names of these ones. So if I give you HCl, let's give you H3PO3, and let's give you H2B4O3. Okay. Here, again, you have 3 different acids. And the first thing, again, that you're looking for is to identify whether it's a simple anion or a complex. Okay. So usually when there's only one element, this would be a simple. These guys have complex anions. Okay. So of the complex, we kind of take a look at what their names are. So PO3 is called phosphite. So it ends with ITE. BHO3 is called tetraborate. So it ends with ATE. Okay. So now you apply the naming rules that we have explained from the previous question. So you can pause it here, okay, figure out what the names of the acid are, and then once you resume, I will give you the names that you should have gotten. All right, so you should have tried it by now. Because this is a simple ion, we always have to use the word hydro. And because it's chlorine, it will be hydrochloric acid. So again, simple ions require the use of the word hydro, and the ending is always ic acid. So this is HCl, or hydrochloric acid. For the next one, H3PO3, because it ends in ite, okay, phosphorus will now become phosphorus acid. Okay, so OUS acid. And then this tetraborate, okay, again we use the root name, so tetra, and borate becomes boric acid. Okay, so you'll notice that complex ions never use the word hydro, and the ending, whether it's OUS acid or ic acid, depends largely on whether it ends in ite or ate for their complex ions. So hopefully this will serve as a good guide for you guys when you're naming different types of acids. Just always look for the anion and see which one of the 3 rules they actually fit. All right, so if you move on to the next video, I'll show you how to name bases and salts.